my body is designed to stay well. So it starts to move everything around in the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system starts to dump it into the tissues. So you start feeling heaviness in the head, heaviness in the body, lethargic, tiredness and fatiguing going on. Maybe I just need to have a holiday. I need to have a rest. You see the doctor says nothing's wrong with you. There's all the blood tests are fine. Everything is fine. Then it starts to go down to the next level, and it starts to go into location level. So it gets stuck into some organ or some tissue of weakness. So it might be a knee problem, it might be liver, it might be, the uterus, in some sort of hormonal imbalance, or it might be, some sort of bladder infection. There'll be some weakness that you're carrying in your body, or maybe skin condition. Still, it's not like a full-on diagnosis yet that you have something that the doctor can give you a name for a disease.
Joe, thank you very much for coming on and being part of this show. I'm really excited to learn all sorts of things about Ayurveda and how you actually spread the word and help so many people, not only locally, but actually around the world, which is really, really exciting to see. So thanks for making time.
Yeah, so nice to see you, Sebastian. It's great to be on with you today.
Hey, Joe, so Ayurveda is something that I sometimes read when I go to an organic store and I see some teas being sold under the Ayurvedic label. And that's about as much as I really know when it comes to the theory behind it. But it's not just a fad that came up recently. It's actually something that has been around for a few days, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Ayurveda has been around for over 5,000 years. So it traditionally comes from India. So it is basically the science of life. So when you look at Ayurveda, it looks at why specifically something is going on, and it doesn't just treat the cause, it doesn't just treat the symptom, it goes back and really treats the cause, so that every single person is unique and you have to have your own unique, basically, path.
Wow, that's amazing. So, and has it been used all those 5,000 years, or has it recently rediscovered again?
No, it's definitely been used all those 5,000 years, but what's actually happening now is more, if you look at the history of Ayurveda, when they actually tried to bring it into the West, the British actually went and wanted to take it over because they wanted Western medicine to be the dominant medicine. So they went and cut off all the therapists' hands in some big, protest against it. But it's been used in India for a very, very long time, and it's used to be taught by teacher, like master to student. So now Ayurveda's become much bigger because there's more scholars in Ayurveda, there's more doctors that are training and teaching, and there's more courses that are happening. So now in the West, people are actually able to study it, where really Ayurveda, you'd have to go to India to actually study like a 5-year doctorate degree if you actually wanted to use or be able to use any of that knowledge.
Wow, so and that's a completely, in itself, complete system, right? Like, a Ayurvedic doctor has the full spectrum of tools available to make it work for whatever. And that's probably what happens, especially in India, that people would just go there with whatever ailments or whatever problems they have here.
Yeah, and I mean, Ayurvedic medicine treats a lot of really chronic diseases. So you'll see the actual traditional Ayurvedic doctors, there's 8 limbs of Ayurveda. We don't really have enough time to go through all of that today, but one of those things is surgery. So the actual traditional Ayurvedic doctors would actually know like certain parts of surgery that they would do, and some of the plastic surgery that was done back in the time is still being done by the actual plastic surgeons today. So it's held its time, and basically, for an example, if you're treating somebody Ayurvedically for diabetes, you would treat them like you used to 5,000 years ago, where now it's like, yeah, let's take metformin, let's take insulin, let's take all these different things, where they don't actually follow the process of, this person's got this problem, this person is this body type, this person's eating this type of food that's not complementary for their disease process. So they don't go in real fast. It's like we treat diabetes, the way they treated 5,000 years ago is still the way they treat today, and still have really, really high success.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah, that people actually had figured that out 5,000 years ago already.
And what I love about when I train or teach people in Ayurveda, I say, do you know Deepak Chopra? Deepak Chopra is known a lot all around the world, especially with the work that he's doing now with Oprah Winfrey, like really taking meditation into a whole other level. Well, Deepak Chopra is actually an Ayurvedic doctor, but he first was an oncologist, an endocrinologist. So he specialized in more hormonal problems. His dad is a cardiologist. So he went to study Ayurveda because he got sick of giving people hormone therapy, sleeping tablets, and antidepressants. And so he went, there's got to be something more to actually helping the body. And then he actually changed his whole way of doing medicine after that.
Wow, that's amazing. He's actually an affiliate of our company too. I know that he, goes into heat treatments a little bit and makes it part of his out of his practice as well. But before I go in a little bit into what it actually looks like when you go on the Ayurvedic path or are treated that way, how did you actually get there? What was your path to get to such? Well, in the West probably not as common, or back, I don't know when exactly you started, but I expect it didn't used to be as common.
Yeah, what was really interesting, my path was like when I very first were like an athlete, I used to like do a lot of like sport when I was 14. So I went and actually had like a lot of sporting injuries and different things. And I went to find like a really good remedial therapist who used to treat me. I was like, oh my God, like I love it that, I want to do what you do. So I went to study natural therapy, and I went to study remedial therapy in the sports medicine side. Inside that time when I was actually doing that, I was a hemathrower training for the Olympic Games, and I ruptured my disc really badly, and I had to actually have surgery. But in that time frame, I studied Chinese medicine and acupuncture, and it really helped me a lot with the recovery. And then I was like, something's really missing when I was treating patients. There was something that, yes, I was getting good results, but then we had a doctor come and speak at this natural therapy conference, and he spoke at Ayurveda, and I went, oh my God, he was a Western doctor and an Ayurveda doctor, and I went, you've got to teach us this. This is amazing. So he then developed a two-year course, and I went to study Ayurveda from there. And then that changed my whole practice with how I worked with people. And then I linked in the Neuro-strategy side as well. So I worked also with the psychology. So it was really interesting to see the difference when you knew the holistic view instead of just treating using different multiple modalities now, but definitely Ayurveda is the one that I used, most days.
Wow. Yeah, it's beautiful. And from there, it didn't stop there, right? Because I know your story a little bit, and I guess at one stage you probably realized there was so much need around it, and you couldn't actually, get to all the people. And I love your intention of just multiplying, well, you and the ability to help people by bringing it, online and international. How did you do that?
Yeah, well, I was at this conference where a guy called Roger James Hamilton was speaking, and Roger has really understood the Chinese medicine philosophy and really how the mind works. So looking at health at a totally different way, in the sense that, there is different body types and different sort of mind types specifically. So when you understand your mind type, you understand what way of business you do, or how you work inside companies, and how you actually stay in flow. So I said to him one time in a break, I said, oh my God, there is some way that we could link the Ayurvedic body types into the Chinese medicine and link it into the mind types. And he said, yeah, for sure. We could call that something called like health dynamics. And so from there, it was really sort of born like the first seed, right? And then when you look at Ayurveda and you look at health dynamics, the seed of life is like the center of the flower. And then from there, we actually worked out how both of those parallel medicines could actually come together for the first time. And it was really beautiful because Roger knew a lot of patterns and he thinks like that. So we linked it to, the Pythagoras theory. And Pythagoras says, I give you all the knowledge, you need to work it out. So it's all there and all there. And then we just started working it all out. Then we realized, okay, you can have 10 body types, which is in Ayurveda, and 8 mind types. Then we came up with different possibilities of the report, and then it really multiplied from there, where we started to teach people online how to have their own personalized path to health.
Wow, that's amazing. And there's definitely correlation between the mind types that he has come up with through the Chinese medicine and then actually the body types that is in the Ayurvedic system.
Yeah, definitely. Because what we found is that, let's say, like you're a creator, for example, Sebastian, and your particular body type is more like Kapha. So you have more like a heavier build, more a heavier structure, more of a solid structure. And then there's also Pitta there as well, which is more like a medium size, body type, more stronger direction, more passion and things like that. So you have like a combination where if you have someone who is a creator who's a totally different body type, they respond very differently to health, to the way they do things. So let's say you had someone who was one of the body types, which is Vata, which is like a skinny mini. They're always on the go. They're really lean. They're really, mind is really a little bit scattered. They're more anxious. They're 100 miles an hour. If you mix that with the creator, they never get anything done, right? So when Roger and I started linking them together, he goes, oh my God, I have been using this for like over 20 years. And now I understand why there's all these different creators that I meet. They're all creators, but they actually slightly do things slightly differently. And now it makes more sense because we've linked the mind type and the body type together.
Wow, that's so cool. That's definitely something that the whole world should know, because I think it makes, people who run into particular issues that are just so typical for their body type or their mind type. At that moment, all they can do is just really listening to a strategy that I'm sure is also 5,000 years old, and then you probably have translated into a modern lifestyle and follow it, right? Rather than just thinking, well, that's how I am, this is the problems I have, and not acknowledging, well, it has actually something to do with how you approach life, which is sort of in you, like you are the personality you are, and you want to work with that, hey?
And I think what's really beautiful is when we explain it to the person, we have their report in front of us and we explain what's going on. They're like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. I totally understand that, because they're so connected with their elements inside their body. So as soon as you give them this knowledge, it's not complex. They're going, yeah, that's so true. That makes so much sense. That's so easy. And it's like, yeah, because this is you. So I think we make things very complicated in the sense of, people are Dr. Googling everything and, going into systems.
Yeah, Dr. Googling.
As opposed to going, okay, let's get down to the basics. Let's get down to really what's going on and what's your imbalances. As soon as you know who you're supposed to be, then you understand your imbalances, and then you can come more back to homeostasis.
Great. Wow. That is impressive. Yeah. And so have you, since you work internationally, have you then seen certain patterns arising from different, cultures around the world? And can you see, when, let's say you have a call from the UK or you have a call from, I don't know, Russia, would you say like, I know a pattern that comes from that culture, it is just what it is, and you have certain strategies that, are quite tailored to that type?
Yeah. It's quite interesting you say that, because now that I do work a lot around the world, I do see, different things and different themes that comes, especially if I go speak in London. And London people, because of their healthcare system, they're a little frustrated. We're getting like that definitely in the West, but London is really, really frustrated where, and also they live like more in the colder climate, so everything is more subdued. So as soon as you give them this knowledge, this understanding, they actually are very proactive at doing things, and just getting to that. Where in the West, they're really cautious of, like, very questioning, don't trust, and, want to know more and more and more. So, but what I found is what was really, really different is when I started to do things more online, the result that we had online was more phenomenal than actually what we had in clinic. And I would have thought it was the other way around, because you've got them in front of you. But when someone's in front of you, sometimes they're saying, fix my problem, right? Where someone has come online, they're taking the action to say, I want to fix this problem. So they became more like active about what they wanted to do, and more listening and following and more thorough and all those types of things. So there was a difference I found working with the different cultures, definitely. And then there was also a difference in working from online to offline. So I sort of found both.
Wow, that is so exciting. That's so good to know. Yeah. So, because we're moving, like in our society nowadays, especially the Western world, is moving around so much, and it would make a lot of sense to actually acknowledge, like, I live in a subtropical climate now and didn't used to, that there's actually certain things that I should do much more than, otherwise. I guess it's called a damp spleen, and, there's more mold in the air and what have you. And I'm sure there's certain things that you have to do to actually adapt to your environment, hey?
Yeah, we call that in Ayurveda the changes of the season. So when we're changing seasons and we're changing, even cultures, there's the hot and the cold. Like everything is opposite and everything is complementary. So in Ayurveda, we treat to the opposite. So if someone is hot, we treat them by cool. If someone is damp, we treat them by, breaking up that dampness to more dryness. So if somebody is like, agitated, it's more like calming. So you're working with, in Ayurveda, it's called the gunas. There's 20 gunas, which are like the opposites, and it's the same with seasons. So when you see those, opposite changes in different things, you have to really teach and adapt to people. And as soon as they understand it, they're going, oh my God, I can't believe that. That makes so much sense. This is so easy. But a lot of people don't live to seasons anymore. They're living to the importance of that we're changing so much. Like this world is changing so fast and so rapidly that people don't even get a chance to live to the natural rhythms anymore. The natural rhythms of waking up at night and going to bed at night, or the change of spring to summer, doing the things that they would normally do. They're just doing fasting full ahead and going, okay, well, I don't even have time to really think about that, So that's causing the spiral of disease process.
Yeah. I have a question that I think people come across also, well, in Ayurveda and as well as Chinese medicine, and that's the whole sort of pulse reading thing, right? And I wonder, I mean, it's fascinating when it happens to you, and I've done that with you, and you tell me things that you couldn't know, and you certainly couldn't figure out, because you didn't assess my body, you only did the pulse, and I thought it would be great to just demystify that, like how on earth, in half a minute or a minute, you read the pulse and know that someone had an internal injury 20 years ago. Honestly, that's just very, very odd. And I think it's good to talk about it just so that people get no, you can be that sophisticated. It's not woo-woo thing, because I think that sometimes put people off yeah, right, in half a minute, you can't figure that one out. That took doctors, a lot of scans and all the rest of it. How do you do that?
Yeah, so pulse reading in Ayurveda is trained really teacher, to student, right? So I had some really amazing doctors who trained me, and one particular doctor, Dr. Smita Naram, she's a guru pulse reader in India, and she took me under her wing with her team of doctors. So, pulse reading takes a lot of dedication in the sense of the physician. So you have to dedicate your life to it in the sense that no drinking, no smoking, no lying, no cheating, go vegetarian, so that therefore your quality, your essence is really sharp. So when you touch the pulse, your fingers actually have all the sensitivity to be able to pick up the final subtleties of what's actually going on in the radial pulse. So when someone touches the radial pulse, they think that you're just feeling the beat of the pulse, of the heartbeat, or the blood going through the vein.
Yeah.
But it's not actually that. It's actually when we're feeling there's 360 different pulse combinations. There's 3 different positions that we feel where the main body types are, like Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And then there's all what we call the subdoshas, or the channels that go underneath that. So we can find out where it is, what the problem is, what specifically are we treating. So if you ever do get a chance to have a pulse reader feel, I mean, we can do it a lot over line, by having a conversation. And I've also treated people online by asking a lot more questions. But within 30 seconds in the pulse, we can go, okay, it's happening because of this, it's happening because of this. And then we treat the real cause of the problem. So for example, I had a patient of mine who's actually a very, very good naturopath, and she was trying to fall pregnant. And she had spent tens and thousands of dollars with lots of specialists and lots of doctors. And she's also really, really good herself. And I touched her pulse, and she wasn't actually seeing me specifically for that problem, because she was just saying, show me what you do. I'm really curious about what you do. So I told her, and I couldn't help. I had to send her an email because I found this in her pulse. So she had a huge infertility pulse. She had lots of pitta. She had lots of heat. She had lots of adhesions in the uterus and everything I listed out. And she said, oh my God, you've just told me what I've just spent tens and thousands of dollars to find. You told me that in 30 seconds and you didn't even do any examination. Because we feel exactly where that issue is, and then, we start to, treat and fine-tune those specificness around that. So it becomes more than just your beat. It becomes really the connection to what's going on in all your organs and all your tissues and all your channels to take us to a whole nother level. So it's really, really fascinating, I remember a guru pulse reader felt my pulse, and I had a parasite, and she felt that I had a parasite, and she also said, you got this water bound. So where were you in water that when you got it? And I had been washed under this waterfall, and I got dunked, And it happened to be at that point, so I put two and two together. So she was able to even find that subtlety of actually how I got the parasite, which was really interesting.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I do want to ask you many more questions, but just while we stay on this topic, what I've asked quite a few people that sort of found solutions that definitely work is, how did we divert from all that knowledge and this really useful, way of practicing for so long? Because so many people spend their life savings on getting well again and get nowhere. And then you go to someone, that is like absolutely inexpensive in comparison to tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes to get better and go nowhere. How do we get to this point? And where do you think we go from here? Will this,
That's a really good question. I think it's very controversial as well. And, just in my opinion, not to say the opinion of the world, but I think what happens is people get really sick and we talk about in Ayurveda, the health spectrum. We have a health spectrum report, which is free. You can go and actually do a test and find out where you are basically we create like a lighthouse. So there's the 9 levels, and the top 3 levels are what we call the mindfulness prison, and you can live in mindfulness, good health and above. And then you start going into basically what Ayurveda talks about, how disease process starts going into our body. And first of all, something happens where we have like some sort of aggravation. Something happens in the stomach where something is not quite right, and we may not listen to it. Then it starts to accumulate, and it starts to accumulate with the imbalances of the dosha. So it becomes like either hot or lots of air or lots of mucus. Still, we may not actually do anything about it. So then the body says, my body is designed to stay well. So it starts to move everything around in the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic system starts to dump it into the tissue. So you start feeling heaviness in the head, heaviness in the body, lethargic, tiredness and fatigue going on. Maybe I just need to have a holiday. I need to have a rest. You see the doctor says nothing's wrong with you. There's all the blood tests are fine. Everything is fine. Then it starts to go down to the next level, and it starts to go into location level. So it gets stuck into some organ or some tissue of weakness. So it might be a knee problem, it might be liver, it might be, the uterus, in some sort of hormonal imbalance, or it might be, some sort of bladder infection. There'll be some weakness that you're carrying in your body, or maybe skin condition. Still, it's not like a full-on diagnosis yet that you have something that the doctor can give you a name for a disease, but it's still an imbalance that's going on, and it's The next thing is then it goes to a disease level. You get all these blood tests done, and then you go see the doctor, and the doctor says, oh my God, you've got this, you've got diabetes, you've got high cholesterol, you've got blood pressure, you've got psoriasis. They now give it a name. So they give it a name at that point. Yeah. And the client or the patient goes, oh my God, what do I do to get over this? And so then they give you a drug. And then the person goes, well, I want to get over this quickly. Right? And if they have not the insight of, oh, how did this happen in the first place? I need to take something to get rid of the symptom. So they use a Band-Aid approach. And then they're in the system. So then the whole consequence keep going. And the last stage is what we call chronicity, which is autoimmune disease or cancer, where the body is fighting against its healthy cells. And at that point is, it's hard to reverse that because the body just keeps fighting and fighting and fighting. We're now in an epidemic of autoimmune conditions and cancer. It's like nearly every second person you hear from has got those things. And it's because that's been that progress. But I think it becomes what Ayurveda talks about, pragni apparata, which is mistake of the intellect. I know what to do, but I don't do it. Right? So when you have the digestive problem, you know that you should change your diet, but you actually don't do it at that point. And it just keeps on going. And it's like a frog in hot water. If you take him a little bit hot, a little bit hot, a little bit hot, he still doesn't jump out until he dies, right? It's like, because it's happening so progressively, unless you have the insight going, I don't want to do this, I don't want to take this drug, I want to do something differently, and then you don't go down that process. So I think that's my sort of opinion on how it happens. So
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, because there is no checkup every year to just get a blood picture, and test, like, just to see, like, where are you in that in that level of health right now? Because if we would do that, and I mean, some people are proactive, and I know some countries have certain things that they want to test, but it's not just, can we just take stock, please, where we actually at right now, just to know whether you're moving to more vibrant health or actually declining? Because if we would have that approach, it's just about starting earlier, hey?
But I think that's a good point, because a checkup in your blood results will show you if you're in disease. Right, because then you already have the imbalance that there is something reported, so you've already gone down. But if you have a bit of a, what we call in Ayurveda or in health dynamics, what is health? Health is the dynamic expression of life. So if you're not dynamically expressing yourself, what is going on? Like, what is not working in your body that you wish? Any symptomology, any aches and pains, any digestive problems, any bloating, any constipation, these are all problems. So if we don't address them, they're going to become a big problem, So maybe, one thing, if you're listening, is, write a list of any symptom that you have, and you might be surprised that, just becoming aware of that and going, what could I do to get rid of that? Is there something that I could change? And then actually start to dissolve it before it gets to a disease process.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. That does. And with the modern life, I guess we're quite distracted as well, which means the sensitivity to these, being aware of these subtle changes becomes even harder. And actually, to be fair, like even the 1900s, I think people were really occupied with whatever they did and would ignore it too. But I can see how that
it's interesting you say that, because when I feel someone's pulse, I say, you've got, this going on, you've got a joint problem, you've got cholesterol, you have this. They go, no, I don't have any of that, right? They're not even aware. Sometimes they have a problem. And even if I say to them that you've got high cholesterol, you've got high blood pressure, they go, no, I don't have that. I said, okay, that's really simple, because it's in your pulse. Later on, when I'm taking case history, they said, I take blood pressure medication, I take cholesterol medication. I don't have the problem because I'm taking medication for it. Yeah. And it's like, okay, so there's a disconnect between mind and body.
Do you see, I would love to talk about the steps that we can take actually to go on that path, and you offer quite a few amazing steps, so really easy steps to get there. But just in general, do you see that people, that society and overall, that we are actually awakening to that as a whole and go more towards like, I want to know before things happen? Or is it just my bubble that I live here in Mullumbimby, Australia, where I see these things happen a lot because people are just conscious and want to have more? What's your fear?
In the sense of
that people are more know that there is another way and that they're interested in taking that, or whether actually in the whole people are actually still going down like no symptoms, therefore I have no problems, and as long as the doctor takes the symptoms away, I'm good.
Yeah, it's interesting because I even said to somebody yesterday or this morning, I was blown away with this week how many patients I saw who was upset about the doctor's approach. I saw a young girl who's only 37 and she was put on 15 medications. She'd been to hospital, she had all the tests, she had everything, and there was nothing wrong with her. But she came out of hospital with 15 medications. So she had 3 medications for constipation, 2 medications for reflux, another medication for pain, because she had all this abdominal pain, all this abdominal swelling and everything. Now she's shown up to us and said, I need to get off all this medication. She was super sick, right? And then I had another one with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, again, was put on different medication. And, it just keeps going on. And the doctors are not testing these people because, especially in Australia and even in London and different countries as well, the government system is clamping down on finding out what is going on. They're only ready to treat you if you're in disease. So they're not looking at preventative health. So I think there's definitely an awareness shift changing. I think where we are working on for personalized health is education. So if people are educated in knowing what they should be, then it's going to be much easier for them to have a look at the goalposts of where they need to go and what they need to do to actually really shift that game plan.
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, so there's a plan and there are actions that can be taken. So what would you recommend to someone who, as a first step, when you find someone and, when people know I have this desire of actually knowing where I'm at right now so that I actually can take action way before any symptoms arise or where the traditional approach would tell me that something is wrong?
Yeah. So one of the things we do in Health Dynamics is we get them to actually do their online test. So it's, 50 questions, which is 25 around your mind type and 25 around your body type. And that will give you like a 24-page report, which is quite a lot of knowledge just on yourself. It's like what I call your little GPS, your little Bible, the way that you can have a look at like who you are. And then from there, we do like a consultation to actually go through that actual profile. Because sometimes you can answer the test and you're imbalanced, and we need to go, okay, you answered a few things in your imbalance, and so you came up as this body type, but you're actually this body type. So we just refine that to make sure they have exactly the right report for them. And then what are the things that are causing them the main stress now, and what would be their first steps to get out of that? Because people need like having a plan, a bit of an action plan, so that they can actually make the first step, the first move. So I find that when people get that way, before jumping into doing like some big major plan, they need to understand themselves first.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Great. Is there a particular website that people can go to catch that information in that free test?
Yeah, definitely. We have the Health Dynamics 360.com website where you can go, and then there's one which is a free test, which is the Health Spectrum, and then one which is find out your body type, which is another test that we do. And there's lots of resources we have on there as well, so they can understand more things about them, different articles and things like that as well.
Oh, fantastic. Man, we only scratched the surface, and normally I have always 3 questions that I actually ask everyone on the show, but I know we started a little bit late, which was absolutely our fault, and I would love to have you back on and dive a little bit deeper and talk a little bit more about the process if you would be available. But it has been really exciting to go through all the different facets of Ayurvedic so far that you have outlined, and I think it's an absolute must to explore for people who are interested in really taking charge of their health, whether they are actually already seeing symptoms or not. Hey?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, definitely. Thanks so much for having us, and really love working with you and really helping to really make a change in the world, because it just happens with one person at a time.
Love it. Thank you so much, Joe. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.